Welcome to Great Elephant Law. Today, we have a very important topic to discuss. Did you know that your actions in the first few minutes following a car crash can significantly impact the value of your legal case? That's right. Every decision that you make matters. And in this video, I'm gonna break down the steps you should take if you're involved in a wreck. Let's dive right in. The first thing you should do is call 911. Calling 911 is essential for your safety and to make sure everything is properly documented. The police report itself is an essential document that's very important to a case. It includes details such as the parties involved, witness statements, and a description of how the incident happened. The police report is often crucial for claims as well as legal proceedings that end up in court. I'm going to give you reasons why it's important to call the police after a wreck. Number one is legal documentation. The police report is an official document. It includes things such as the parties involved, witness statements, and a description of how the incident occurred. The police report also serves as an objective assessment. The officer who's not involved in a collision with the parties can give his honest, unbiased opinion as to who caused the crash. Calling 911 also allows the police to get there quickly. They can even call and send an ambulance to the scene if one is needed. Oftentimes, the people involved don't ask for an ambulance or don't know they need one right away. The police can also provide traffic control. Oftentimes when a wreck happens, the other motorists on the road, they're either not paying attention or they're paying too much attention, trying to see what happened. And oftentimes they themselves end up causing additional wrecks or even injuring the people who have been involved in a wreck and are on side of the road waiting for help. So always dial 911 and get help. Calling 911 also discourages those drivers who are intoxicated or uninsured and simply try to flee after a wreck. If you can get the license plate, the police can pursue them. This is something you should never do on your own. Calling 911 also allows the officers, once they arrive to the scene, to facilitate the exchange of information. You need the other person's name, you need their address, you need their insurance information. Oftentimes people exchange this information freely, but there are those times and there are those people who will become irritable and even violent at the scene of a crash. Law enforcement can deal with this. That's not your job, nor should you have to or try to deal with that. Calling 911 also gives the officers the opportunity to interview and get written or recorded statements from witnesses who were not involved in the crash. So this is often vital to determining who's at fault, because now we have an unbiased third party who is not involved in the wreck, who simply witnessed it, coming forward and giving an official statement to the police. Now that statement itself may not be admissible in court, but that person can be called later for subsequent testimony. They can be called to give a deposition. They can be called to come to trial and testify as to what they saw. When that happens, we're not stuck relying on your version of how the wreck happened and the defendant's versions. We now have a third party who has nothing to gain, no dog in the hunt, willing to say what they saw. Calling 911 is the best way to make sure that person's identity and what they saw is recorded. Most insurance companies want a police report. Oftentimes, there will be a significant delay in having your claim processed if there is no police report. Now, it doesn't kill your case, because technically a police report is a hearsay document, is not admissible as evidence in court. However, more than 95% of cases are resolved prior to going to court. So having that police report is an important tool in getting your case handled properly. By calling law enforcement to the scene, you also give them an opportunity to determine if there's some criminal activity involved. Was this driver speeding, driving reckless? Was he intoxicated? These are things you need law enforcement at the scene for. Evidence preservation. By having law enforcement show up to the scene, they can take photos and or videos of the scene, of the vehicles, of the people involved. All of these things are vital evidence that can be used later to prove your claims in court. And last but not least, calling 911 can provide a peace of mind. By calling 911, you get ambulance there if you need it, you get law enforcement there, and what happened to you in this crash will be well documented. If there's no 911 call, then there's no documentation, and that can prove to be vital if the defendant calls his insurance company and denies causing the wreck, denies being in the wreck, or even says, you know what, it was your fault. You hit dry brakes, or you swerved in front of them. So please, 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 if you're in a wreck, call 911. Once you've concluded your business at the scene of the crash, you need to seek medical attention. 10 reasons why you should seek medical attention. Number 1 is hidden injuries. Some injuries, such as internal bleeding, concussions, herniated discs, these things are not evident at the scene of a crash. In fact, your adrenaline can be so high that you feel no pain or no discomfort. So it's important to get medical attention because a medical professional can identify, diagnose, and recommend treatment for these very significant injuries that you could suffer. The second reason is related to the first. It's delayed symptoms. Oftentimes, people don't feel any pain or discomfort at the scene. The symptoms of your injuries may not reveal themselves until several hours, sometimes even several days after the initial collision. Preventing complications. Seeking medical attention as soon as possible can prevent complications from an underlying condition that may not be easily diagnosed just by looking at a person. Medical documentation. No matter what your injuries are, the insurance company for the other person is going to want to see proof. The best proof you can provide is medical documentation of your injuries. So don't lay there and tough it out or delay getting treatment. If you're having problems, get the medical care. Number 1, you need it for your body. Number 2, it's the proof you may need to prove your injuries. Now I want to cover the last 2 reasons why you should seek medical treatment following a car crash. Number 1 is pain management. The sooner you get treatment for your injuries, the sooner your body can begin the healing process. And oftentimes, delays in seeking medical treatment result in delays in getting better. So get the medical treatment as soon as possible. If you're having problems, go. If you're not having problems, it's still not a bad idea to get checked out. The last reason why you should seek medical attention is for your own emotional well-being. We all know, or most of us, or we should know, that people can suffer significant injuries and even lose their life in crashes. And that's not controlled by the size of the vehicles involved, the speed of the vehicles. There's people who walk away from 80-mile-an-hour crashes, and there's people who die in 8-mile-an-hour crashes. So get treated or checked out, if for nothing else, just so you know here that you're fine. Now here's a tip I want to give you. This is very important. If you don't take anything else from this video, you should document the scene of the wreck. Take your own pictures, take your own photos, document everything. The cars involved, the people involved, the roadway involved, any signs involved, any trees blocking your view, anything that may have affected the crash, document it at the scene if you're able to. If you're not able to, ask law enforcement to do it. Now that we've talked a great deal about what you should do if you're involved in a crash, I want to talk about what you should not do. Never admit fault. Even if you think your fault percentage may be very, very small, don't admit fault. Unless you're trained in the law and know what the traffic rules and regulations are like the back of your hand, you don't know for sure if you did anything to cause or contribute to it. The second reason is anything you say can be taken out of context. So be careful with what you say at the scene of a crash to the other driver. Keep your conversations to a minimum. Avoid discussing the incident with other people at the scene. Now, when law enforcement arrives, it's acceptable to provide a verbal or written statement to law enforcement to the extent you're able to. But don't give it to the other person. I've seen way too many cases where that other person calls his insurance company, denies fault, says it was your fault, and will even go so far as to say they talked to you at the scene and you admitted it was your fault. So be careful. Just keep the conversation to a minimum with the other driver. It's okay to ask them if they're okay. It's okay to exchange insurance information. But discussing the details of the crash, bad idea. The first few moments after a car wreck are very important. Now you have a few tools in your arsenal that should help you deal with the other driver if you're ever involved in an automobile collision. That's not your fault. If you found any of the information in this video useful, hit the like button and subscribe, and stay tuned for more valuable insight.